Have you ever noticed how quickly satisfaction disappears? You spend months working toward something, sometimes years. You imagine how good it will feel once you finally get there. Maybe it's a better job, a promotion, more money, a relationship you've always wanted, a goal you've been chasing for as long as you can remember. And then, one day, it happens. You achieve it. For a brief moment, everything feels exactly as you hoped. You feel excited, relieved, proud of yourself. But then, something strange begins to happen. The excitement fades, the novelty disappears, and the thing you once believed would make you happy no longer feels enough. Almost without realizing it, your attention shifts to something else. A new goal, a new desire, a new version of the future that promises to finally give you what the last one could not. And so the cycle begins again. Most people rarely stop to question this pattern. They simply assume they need more success, more recognition, more experiences, more achievements. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if the problem isn't that you haven't achieved enough? What if the problem isn't that you're aiming too low? What if there is something far deeper happening beneath the surface of every human desire? For centuries, people have searched for an answer to this question, and one philosopher believed he had found it. His name was Thomas Aquinas, and according to him, the reason you never feel completely satisfied may reveal one of the deepest truths about what it means to be human. But to understand that truth, we first need to look at a pattern that almost everyone spends their entire life repeating without ever noticing it. Think about how many times this has happened in your life. You tell yourself, once I achieve this, I'll finally be happy. When you're a student, you think life will begin after graduation. When you graduate, you think life will begin when you find the right job. Then it's the promotion, the higher salary, the better house, the better relationship, the next opportunity, the next milestone, the next version of yourself. And every time you arrive, the same thing happens. For a moment, you feel fulfilled. Then the feeling slips away. Almost immediately, a new desire takes its place. A new destination appears on the horizon, a new promise of happiness. It's as if satisfaction is always one step ahead of you, close enough to keep you moving, far enough to remain out of reach. What's remarkable is that this pattern rarely changes, no matter how much a person's circumstances improve. The person earning $10,000 believes happiness belongs to the person earning $100,000. The person earning $100,000 imagines happiness belongs to the millionaire. And the millionaire often discovers that wealth solved far fewer problems than expected. The same pattern appears in relationships, in careers, in status. In nearly every area of life, the object changes. The feeling does not, which leads us to an uncomfortable possibility. What if the problem isn't that you're failing to achieve your goals? What if the problem is that no achievement was ever designed to satisfy the deepest part of you? Thomas Aquinas believed that before we can understand why satisfaction never lasts, we must first understand something even more fundamental. We must understand the true nature of human desire itself. Because the answer is not found in what we pursue, it's found in why we pursue anything at all. At this point, you might be thinking, maybe I just haven't found the right thing yet. After all, perhaps satisfaction disappears because you've been pursuing the wrong goals, the wrong career, the wrong relationships, the wrong version of success. It's a reasonable assumption, but there is one problem. The same restlessness appears in people who seem to have everything. History is filled with individuals who achieved extraordinary success. They accumulated wealth beyond imagination. They gained admiration from millions. They reached the highest levels of power and influence. Yet many of them continued searching, continued striving, continued feeling as though something was still missing. And this should make us pause. Because if dissatisfaction were simply the result of not having enough, then the people who have the most should be the most fulfilled. Yet reality often tells a different story. The pattern appears everywhere, among the rich and the poor, the famous and the unknown, the young and the old, different lives, different circumstances, the same restlessness, the same feeling that fulfillment remains just beyond reach. This is why Thomas Aquinas believed the problem could not be explained merely by external conditions. The answer had to be deeper, much deeper, The source of this dissatisfaction was not found in money, or status, or relationships, or achievements. It was found within human nature itself, not because human beings are defective, not because happiness is impossible, but because every human being possesses something extraordinary, something so powerful that it shapes every decision, every ambition, and every dream. Aquinas called it desire, and according to him, understanding desire is the key to understanding your entire life. Because before we ask why we can never seem to get enough, we must first ask a more fundamental question. What is it that human beings are truly seeking? More than 700 years ago, Thomas Aquinas made a simple observation about human beings, an observation so obvious that most people overlook it entirely. He noticed that every action we take is directed towards something we believe is good. Think about it. Nobody chooses something because they believe it will make them miserable. Even when people make mistakes, they do so because they expect some kind of benefit, some kind of satisfaction, some kind of good. The student studies because knowledge appears good. The entrepreneur builds because success appears good. The lover pursues a relationship because love appears good. Every choice points toward something the mind perceives as desirable, something worth having, something capable of improving life. This insight led Aquinas to a profound conclusion. Human beings are always searching for fulfillment. Always, whether they realize it or not. Every ambition, every dream, every sacrifice, every pursuit, at its deepest level, each one is an attempt to reach a state of completion, a state where nothing important is missing, a state where the restless search finally comes to an end. But here is where the mystery begins. If every desire is aimed at something good, why does every good thing eventually seem insufficient? Why does knowledge make us want more knowledge? Why does success create new ambitions? Why does love awaken an even deeper longing? Why does every achievement seem to satisfy us only temporarily? Aquinas believed these questions reveal something extraordinary, because the problem may not be the things we pursue. The problem may be that we misunderstand what our desire is actually looking for. And once we understand that, a surprising possibility begins to emerge. Perhaps the human heart is searching for something far greater than anything this world can offer. To understand Aquinas, we need to make an important distinction. Most people think desire is about the things they want: money, success, love, recognition, comfort. But Aquinas believed these things are not the final destination of desire. They are only its temporary objects. The deeper movement of desire goes far beyond them. Consider knowledge. When you learn something new, it feels satisfying. A question is answered. A mystery is solved. But does your desire for knowledge end there? Of course not. The more you learn, the more you realize there is still left to understand. Knowledge awakens an even greater desire for knowledge. The same thing happens with success. You reach a goal that once seemed impossible. For a moment, you feel fulfilled. Then another goal appears, another challenge, another summit to climb, and the cycle continues. Love follows the same pattern. People long to be understood, to be accepted, to be loved. And when they experience genuine love, it brings real joy. Yet even the most beautiful relationships cannot completely silence the deeper longing within the human heart. There is always a desire for more intimacy, more connection, more permanence, more certainty. This pattern appears everywhere. Every satisfaction generates a new desire. Every fulfillment reveals another horizon. Every achievement opens the door to another pursuit. And according to Aquinas, this is not an accident. It is a clue hidden within human nature itself. Because if every finite good leaves us wanting more, if every success is temporary, if every pleasure eventually fades, then perhaps desire is pointing beyond all of them. Perhaps the reason nothing seems enough is not because desire is broken. Perhaps it is because desire was never meant to stop at finite things. And if that is true, then we must ask an even deeper question. What happens if the human heart is searching for something infinite? At this point, many people arrive at the wrong conclusion. They assume the problem is desire itself. They believe they want too much, that their expectations are too high, that happiness would be easier if they simply stopped longing for more. But Thomas Aquinas saw things differently. He did not believe human desire was the problem. In fact, he believed desire was one of the greatest clues to understanding who we are. Imagine a fish longing for water. Would we say the fish desires too much? Of course not. Its desire points toward something essential to its nature. Imagine a person feeling hunger. Would we conclude that hunger is a mistake? No. Hunger points toward food. It reveals a real need. For Aquinas, the same principle applies to every natural desire. A desire exists because there is something capable of fulfilling it. Thirst points toward water. Hunger points toward food. The desire for knowledge points toward truth. The desire for love points toward relationship. The desire for happiness points toward fulfillment. So, what should we make of a desire that never seems completely satisfied? A desire that remains even after success, even after pleasure, even after achievement. Aquinas believed that this was one of the most important questions a person could ask. Because perhaps the issue is not that our desires are too large. Perhaps they are large for a reason. Perhaps the human heart continues reaching beyond every finite thing because it was never created to rest in finite things. Think about the language people often use. They say, "There must be more to life than this." What's remarkable is how universal that feeling is. It appears in different cultures, different generations, different circumstances. Again and again, human beings sense that nothing they possess is enough to completely satisfy them. And Aquinas would say that this feeling is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of something far more profound. The size of your desire may be revealing the size of what you were created for. And that brings us to the heart of Aquinas' argument. The difference between finite things and infinite fulfillment. Now we arrive at the center of Aquinas' insight, the distinction between what is finite and what is infinite. Everything in this world is finite. Every possession, every achievement, every relationship, every experience. No matter how beautiful or meaningful, each one has limits. A career can succeed, but it cannot answer every question. Wealth can provide comfort, but it cannot eliminate every fear. Love can bring great happiness, but it cannot remove every loneliness. Knowledge can expand the mind, but it can never reveal everything. Finite things, by their nature, can only offer finite satisfaction, and yet there is something strange about the human heart. It does not merely seek truth, it seeks complete truth. It does not merely seek goodness, it seeks perfect goodness. It does not merely seek love, it seeks unconditional and lasting love. This is what fascinated Aquinas. Human beings possess desires that seem larger than anything the material world can provide. No matter how much we acquire, a deeper longing remains. Not because the things themselves are bad. Money is not bad. Success is not bad. Love is not bad. They are genuine goods. The problem is expecting them to do something they were never designed to do. Imagine trying to fill an ocean with a cup of water. No matter how many times you pour, the ocean remains vast. Not because the water is worthless, but because the container is far too large. Aquinas believed something similar is happening within us. We keep asking finite things to satisfy an infinite longing. We ask temporary things to provide permanent fulfillment. We ask limited things to satisfy unlimited desire. And then we wonder why disappointment follows. The tragedy is not that these things fail us. The tragedy is that we expect from them what only something greater could ever provide. Because if the human heart truly longs for the infinite, then no finite achievement could ever be enough. And once we understand this, something else begins to make sense. Perhaps the modern world has been feeding our desires without ever addressing the deeper hunger beneath them. If Aquinas is right, then many of the problems of modern life begin to look very different. Today, we live in a world that constantly promises satisfaction. Every advertisement tells us that happiness is one purchase away. Every social media feed suggests that fulfillment belongs to someone else, someone richer, someone more attractive, someone more successful, someone living a life we wish we had. And so we keep consuming more information, more entertainment, more products, more experiences. Yet, despite having access to more than any generation before us, many people feel increasingly restless, increasingly anxious, increasingly disconnected. Why? Because modern culture is incredibly effective at stimulating desire, but far less effective at satisfying it. We are encouraged to chase endlessly, but rarely encouraged to ask where our desires are actually leading us. Think about it. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another immediately appears. A new product, a new trend, a new goal, a new comparison. The cycle never stops. And because it never stops, many people begin to believe that restlessness is simply a normal part of life, something to manage, something to distract ourselves from, something to suppress. But Aquinas would challenge that assumption. He would argue that our restlessness is trying to tell us something important, something we ignore at our own risk. Because beneath every desire, beneath every ambition, beneath every pursuit, there may be a deeper hunger that no amount of consumption can satisfy. And until we understand that hunger, we will continue searching for fulfillment in places where it can never truly be found. Which raises a crucial question. What if your dissatisfaction is not a problem to escape from? What if it is a message you have been overlooking your entire life? Most people spend their lives fighting against their dissatisfaction. They see it as a flaw, a weakness, a sign that something is wrong with them. They tell themselves, I should be happier. I should be more grateful. I should be content by now. After all, they have achieved things they once dreamed about. They have reached goals they once thought would change everything. And yet the restlessness remains. Quiet, persistent, always there in the background. So they try to silence it. Some bury it in work. Others bury it in entertainment. Some distract themselves with endless activity. Anything to avoid confronting the uncomfortable feeling that something is still missing. But what if that feeling isn't your enemy? What if it is one of the most important signals in your life? This is where Aquinas offers a radically different perspective. He would argue that your dissatisfaction is not necessarily evidence that you are failing, nor is it evidence that life is meaningless. It may be evidence that your deepest desires have not yet reached their true destination. Think of a compass. When it points north, we do not accuse it of being broken. Its movement reveals what it was designed to do. Aquinas believed human desire works in a similar way. The constant movement of the heart, the endless search for more truth, more goodness, more beauty, more love. These are not random impulses. They reveal an orientation, a direction, a purpose built into human nature itself, and this changes everything. Because if your restlessness has a meaning, then it is no longer merely a source of frustration. It becomes a clue, a guide, a sign pointing beyond every temporary satisfaction you've ever experienced. Perhaps the emptiness you feel is not proof that life has failed you. Perhaps it is proof that you were made for something greater than anything you have yet encountered. And if that is true, then we must ask the final question. What is the ultimate object of human desire? What is the one thing capable of bringing the restless search to its end? At the heart of Aquinas' philosophy lies a remarkable conclusion. Every human desire, no matter how different it may appear on the surface, is ultimately moving toward the same destination. The person seeking knowledge wants truth. The person seeking success wants fulfillment. The person seeking love wants union. The person seeking beauty wants perfection. The person seeking happiness wants a good that cannot be lost. Different paths, different objects, but beneath them all lies the same longing. The longing for something complete, something permanent, something without limitation. And this is where Aquinas makes his most important claim. The human heart does not desire infinite truth by accident. It does not desire perfect goodness by accident. It does not desire unconditional love by accident. These desires exist because they correspond to a reality greater than anything found within the material world. For Aquinas, that reality is God. Not merely as a religious idea, not merely as an object of belief, but as the fullness of truth, the fullness of goodness, the fullness of beauty, the fullness of being itself. In other words, God is not simply one more thing among many things. God is the ultimate source toward which every genuine human desire is unconsciously moving. This is why finite goods can never completely satisfy us. Not because they are worthless, but because they are reflections. They point beyond themselves. Every beautiful thing hints at a greater beauty. Every act of love hints at a greater love. Every moment of joy hints at a greater joy. The mistake is not enjoying these things. The mistake is expecting them to be ultimate. Because no finite thing can carry the weight of an infinite desire, and once this is understood, a surprising realization begins to emerge. Perhaps the deepest longing of your life has never been for success, or wealth, or recognition. Perhaps it has always been a longing for the infinite itself. This brings us back to the question we began with. Why does nothing ever feel like enough? Why does satisfaction disappear so quickly? Why does every achievement eventually leave us searching for more? Thomas Aquinas believed the answer is both simple and profound. It is not because you are broken. It is not because your desires are excessive. And it is not because happiness is impossible. It is because the human heart was created for something greater than anything finite can provide. Every success you achieve, every beautiful experience, every meaningful relationship, every moment of joy. These things matter. They are real goods, but they were never meant to be your final destination. They are signs, pointers, glimpses of something beyond themselves. And perhaps that is why the search never completely ends. Because deep within you exists a desire that no temporary thing can fully satisfy. A desire for perfect truth, perfect goodness, perfect love. A desire for the infinite. So instead of asking, "Why am I never satisfied?" perhaps ask a different question. What is my dissatisfaction trying to teach me? Because the restlessness you feel may not be a flaw in your nature. It may be one of the clearest signs of what your nature truly is. And the reason nothing in this world ever feels completely enough may be because you were never made for enough. You were made for something infinite.